Good morning, everyone, and welcome to SalesTV. Do you know, I was going to say welcome to, and I was going to put a different show in there for some reason. We do so many of these, don't we? This is our weekly, well, twice weekly actually, informal conversation for all things sales. Our vision is to make this a safe space for salespeople to come and talk about issues, problems, changes in the world, challenges that they're facing, new innovations, and all of that stuff. So welcome to everybody. Let's just quickly go around the room and introduce ourselves. Alex.
Good morning, everyone. And for those in the UK, I hope you enjoyed the long weekend that we just had, the summer bank holiday. I'm a little bit tired, so I'm struggling to get the wheel turning. But my name's Alex, founder of Sapiro, and looking forward to this morning's discussion.
Andy.
Andy Huff, lecturer in sales leadership and performance at Cranfield University and founder of the ISP.
Tim.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name's Tim Hughes. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite, and I'm probably famous for writing the book Social Selling Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers.
And I'm Adam Gray. I'm Tim's business partner and co-founder of DLA Ignite, and I seem to be in the hot seat this morning. So good morning, everybody, and welcome to SalesTV. We always kind of go with the flow and see what conversations come out of the audience. So I thought an interesting place, or we thought an interesting place for us to start today would be BDR or BDRs, the role of BDRs in the modern sales world. And I think this kind of really splits the room, doesn't it, this one? Yes, I certainly have.
Tea, personally, but
Tea.
builder's tea.
Yeah, so I personally...
There's another topic for us there, though, Adam.
What's that? Whether we have tea or coffee?
Tea or coffee person in the morning, what gets you going? And do you switch throughout the day?
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, ever since Glengarry Glen Ross, we all have to drink coffee, don't we? But yeah, BDRs. See, I don't think there's a role for a BDR anymore. I think with digital tools, that's a good question as well. With digital tools and everybody's ability to do their own research and forge their own relationships, it does beg the question: are BDRs like, and Tim often uses this analogy, typing pools? You know, we can all type our own letters now. We don't need to have typists on hand to be able to do that for us. Do we actually need BDRs anymore? We can all go online and search and find the people we need to talk to, and then it's up to us to try to forge a relationship with those people.
Isn't AI going to take over the role of the BDR?
Theoretically, it could, yeah. I can't help feeling though that whether or not the business development bit is being done by a human or being done by an AI, I can't help feeling that it smacks a little bit for the buyer that you are being processed either way. That, you know, Tim is a sales leader. He's too busy to want to have a conversation with me until I've expressed the fact that I'm going to want to buy something. And that does sound a little bit like the buyers are being commoditized, doesn't it?
I think that's happened for a long time, though, hasn't it? So we've given the title BDRs, but in IT, classical IT, you had a channel that theoretically did that. And it's all about trying to find the edges of the market. But I think new technologies have come about such that people have kind of developed this role in order to reach the market as much as they can. And I don't think you can answer the question. I think I agree with everything's been said, but I don't think you can answer the question without defining where BDRs are. Are they in one segment of the market? Does the classical sales world use them? And then therefore address the how, and do you need them or not?
For me, it's about the culture of prospecting in an organization and where prospecting sits. The reason why the BDR role was invented, as far as I was concerned, was that what you did was the classic salesperson, sort of generally called an AE or an account executive, that person was there to actually close. So they were there to take on the sales process and ultimately close it. And they would always argue that they don't have time for prospecting. So the role of the BDR was created to in effect allow, there was a prospecting role or a top of funnel role that was created that was there to generate opportunities and then push them down the funnel. I'm using the funnel as an analogy with banter. Someone coming on saying funnels don't exist anymore, but just go with it.
Great point by Claire.
Claire, you're more than welcome to come on to this show. We
Please.
Always on the show. We just don't have a guest on today, but you're more than welcome to come on and change the demographic of the panel.
And also change the perspective on stuff. You know, I personally cannot see a role for a BDR. If you can, change my mind. And I kind of mean that as a really friendly challenge, you know, because I'm more than happy to admit that I was wrong about something.
You see, I can see a role for a BDR in modern business. I think the role of the BDR today, as we knew it, is becoming, if not already, obsolete. It's very difficult for junior salespeople to A, not look like salespeople, and B, demonstrate a degree of credibility as much as a senior sales individual or a leader. And so I think the role of the BDR is changing to support the sales team. I think I do think that, to your point, Tim, the role of prospecting should no longer just sit with the BDR. And I know it doesn't in a lot of organizations, but I do think that businesses need to look at all of their employees and get a sense of, you know, if we believe that people buy from people, and that is the way that things continue to go, and we live in a democracy where, you know, shared values and beliefs are important to people, as opposed to, you know, sales messaging being a differentiator, then we do need to look at everyone within our organization and help them to activate their networks, because every employee has a network, a digital network, whether it's on LinkedIn or somewhere else, and start to, I think, share that responsibility of prospecting across the organization, so the entire organization can really stand out and start to look different and leverage the one thing that's unique within their business, which is the people.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting point, and Claire's raised a great one, and I reinforced that we actually have a hugely different demographic coming on. This is just a slack holiday period, so we take that very seriously, Claire. It relates me of a story. I think I might have told it before, when I was working at Dell, or it was EMC, and we went to see Avon Cosmetics. We went to see the CIO, and we took the vice chair, the area vice president, and a long list down to the salesperson, and it was effectively 5 men, and the CIO was a female, and everybody in her team was pretty much a female. And the first words were, she said, "What's wrong with this picture?" And we did a survey. We haven't released it yet. We're just going back round after 12 months to see if it's the same. But we looked at, do buyers look for trust in salespeople, and what are the markers of trust? And if you had a shameless plug, like an ISP, a professional brand, something like, but the bit that was interesting about that is over 40% of the buying respondents were female, and a vast majority were under 30. And that is the point, is that, wow, hang on a minute, the diversity has absolutely ridden through every other part of a business, but sales hasn't. And it's down to this addictive leadership, that it is a white male predominantly that fits in with the culture of the organization, because most sales leaders are white male, and their unconscious biases are, those are the kind of people I want to do the job. They're not going to go home and pick the kids up at 3 o'clock. They don't have kids. Very touchy subject, but let's just grasp that nettle. So fundamentally, I've got somebody who I think is going to stay with me the course and be here 4 or 5 years and smash the number. And that's dead and gone. We just don't accept it yet. And then we wonder genuinely why buyers hold us out. We don't look like them. We carry a number on our back. Therefore, our outcome is to sell something. Their outcome might be they don't know what their need is yet. Therefore, the underappreciated need needs unpacking for them. That's only going to happen in a trusted environment. And, even if they do have an appreciated need, they still don't feel comfortable because we've still got that number on our back. And actually what they'd like to do is do their own due diligence and find out of all the possible solutions, what might be the one that is best for them. So they've got that opportunity. I think it's, I think the sea change is happening on a lot of them, and that's one of them. That's the big one. We don't recognize it yet. So we're not doing what we can to be as diverse as we can.
So interesting comment here from Derek. So in pharma, Derek, is it equally men and women, or is it female biased, or is it a representative split of the different diverse makeup of people in each country? Be really interested to know. But yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? How it's the last, in many ways, it's the last pillar of chauvinism, isn't it? The kind of the sales function.
Football is, isn't
it? yeah, very good point. Very good.
Only if you're Spanish.
Yeah. Well, look at the bank holiday we just had. The summer bank holiday, and the reason why it was created. It was created for bankers who were predominantly male back in the day to go and enjoy a day of cricket before the end of summer. I mean, that's not exactly diverse.
But we've all embraced it now, though, haven't we? Everybody embraced it. Everybody took the day off.
Well, they have. Everybody enjoys the day off, but perhaps we need to change the reason why it's a day off.
Yeah.
So who should BDRs report to?
Good question.
Is it sales? Is it marketing? Should they be their own team? Who should they report to?
So there's this ongoing debate as to whether BDR should report into marketing or sales. I'm going to throw it out there and say I think the BDR organization should report up into the CEO and be responsible for relationship building.
So Tim and I did some work last year with a mid-sized tech business based out in California. Well, they're all based out in California, aren't they, really? And in that organization, each of the salespeople was paired with their own BDR. So they reported directly to their sales partner, and they were a resource to do research and to do that, but within specific industries and specific verticals and specific target accounts. And they worked very closely as a pair, as a team, to try to develop accounts. And I actually kind of quite like that as a methodology. But I was talking to one of the sales people that had their own BDR, and I said, who is more credible in the eyes of the prospect, you or your BDR? And they said, well, I am, because I'm 50 and I've got 20 years experience of this and I kind of understand the marketplace. Okay, who's better at actually closing business, you or the BDR? And they said, well, me, because I've got experience of doing it and I understand the kind of the mechanics of doing business. Okay, who knows more about the product and the solution and how that solves problems for the client? And they said, me. I said, so what are you giving opportunities to your BDR to develop then? Because at every single touch point, you're better at it than they are. And it's not like you've got this tsunami of leads that you're having to work through. You've got almost no conversation. So why on earth would you not have the best chance of turning those into business?
So the first thing, Adam, what you just said is ageist.
Okay, yeah.
And
well, I didn't say it; he did.
Well, you added age into that, so that's ageist for starters. So I'm sorry, but I'm sure there's plenty of 20-year-olds that could do all those things.
Yeah, maybe.
And the question you didn't ask the salesperson, because you didn't want to know the answer, was, do you have time to do the prospecting? And he would have said, no, I don't, because I'm closing. And that's the difference, which is that now you may come back and argue and say, well, we shouldn't be organizing the company based on what we want. We should be organizing the organization and what the customer wants. But the reason why the SDR role was created was really about making sure that we're allocating the roles and responsibilities of the sales process to the right people at the right time. And what we do is that we get this lump at this point where it gets handed over to the salesperson. Now that lump, I don't like that, and lots of other customers don't like that, but that's one of the difficulties of having that particular role. One of the things that I don't like in and I think that we all don't like, is the fact that we've had this movement, especially in IT, to basically take sales back to the 1980s, which is that what we've done is that even though we all agree that we shouldn't be selling feature function, what we do is that we've moved the SDR role to a feature function role. Because what you're going to do is that it doesn't matter what mechanism is, that we're going to get you onto some sort of call, whether we do that through social media, whether we do that through cold calling or email or whatever, and then we're going to give you a demo. And the demo is going to be feature and function. There's another feature, here's another feature, here's another feature, here's another feature, here's another feature. And that is 1980s selling.
Yeah. And that, as we know it.
Yeah, but is it... I'm putting caution here. I'm not disagreeing. I'm trying to get through it. There's a different type of functionality of selling now in a different sector of the market, which is these new software SaaS things that weren't around when we started. And that, I think, has forced a different function. So if we look at Jordan and people like that who are at Vidyard, they have to do something now which we predominantly never had to do, which is they've got to demo something. That they've got to, yes, they have some specialist who might come on at the fourth conversation, but they've got to be able to navigate people through the benefits of what they do and what that software does in a way that we never talked about to a lot of these organizations. And
so I've done demos through the whole of my career. Always.
In what way though? Because you were in Oracle, but I never saw anyone do a demo in EMC, because fundamentally, it's big iron. And
yeah. Well, I mean, I would expect that, but selling software and selling solutions, you always did demonstrations because you needed to demonstrate the software. The difference is that you went through a process of understanding the person's requirements and then basically regurgitating that back to them, saying, you said that you had a problem in the procurement to pay cycle. Here's the procurement to pay cycle. Isn't that a lot easier for you?
I get it. But therefore, how many relationships did you have? And that's the point about the SDR. The SDR is meant to go out there and get a bunch of relationships and people warmed up. That's the whole concept, isn't it?
Yeah. We're working with one supply chain software company, and they tell us that there's 100 stakeholders involved in every sale.
Yeah.
When I first started in sales, you probably were selling to IT, and that then expanded into the user departments. And then, of course, what we've got IT, we've got architecture, we've got the user departments. If I'm selling an accounting system, I'm probably talking to finance, procurement. There may even be payables. I might be talking to receivables. So there may be lots of different departments. So that's expanded out. But then then the discussion is around whose responsibility is it to build a long-term relationship in the organization. Because in the role of new business, which is what I did, you have to build relationships and trust within seconds.
Yeah, and bear in mind you've got an inbound SDR or BDR and an outbound SDR BDR. I think they're commonly referred to as the SDR is typically the inbound, responding to what marketing generates, and the BDR is more proactive and outbound. But no matter which way you cut it, the BDR, the proactive outbound relationship building, isn't relationship building. It's searching and qualifying, because we need to find the ideal customer who's ready to buy so we can hand it over. And that's the fundamental problem with the BDR function today, which is why I think the BDR function needs to be a supportive role internally to help everybody, to help empower everybody to activate their own networks and start building relationships at scale across, for the organization.
Yeah, but is there a wider thing here? We're talking about, a role. Isn't it actually about the way that customers want to buy is changing? And an SDR/BDR is an additional way of providing options for customers to buy. Some people will go, I quite like being engaged by an SDR. Some people will go, I quite actually like doing it digitally and all online. And others would go, I quite like having somebody who is, what we would call a classical AE, account manager, account director, who's going to be sat at my desk once every month. And other people will go, I quite like the ability to walk into a shop. And I know two organizations who will remain nameless. Not that they've done anything wrong, by the way, but it's not in my power to say. But they've got all four options. Yeah. And one of them is a really big company that deals with huge organizations. And another one is an organization that deals with differing sizes of organizations. One provides catering equipment, the other one provides industrial gases. But both of them have that, and all of them are now going, we've got to rethink our model to team people by regions and sectors. And actually, does it matter if somebody walks into a retail environment and asks a bunch of questions of the retail team because they want knowledge, but then goes and buys online? Or they actually then go and buy with the telesales team. And not everyone can do that, but I can see that it's in this way that customers should elect to buy in their own way. Maybe it's not a bad thing. Maybe what actually companies are doing is giving people a title, which is slightly misleading, but they're providing an omni-channel way that customers can engage with them, and the customer decides. And I know one large, I talked to people in Dell, and they're going, you know what, we our customers know what they want in most of the time once we've got a strategic relationship with them. So we don't care if they buy £1 million over the internet.
Yeah, and that's the problem there, Andy. Most companies don't have enough strategic relationships, and when they do engage with the buyer, wherever it might be, whichever channel or place, the person they engage with is in sales mode rather than,
But I'm just finishing an article about this, which actually we should look at maybe in the future and get some retail people on. It's consumerism. We haven't grasped as salespeople that all of our buyers and we ourselves are consumers. Therefore, everything that we experience and we are looking for as an experience as a consumer doesn't stop when we walk into work. It's still there. What we've got as sales organizations, as salespeople, is an inability to then go, well, what is it that experience is? And how do we do that in a corporate?
Well, I think there's a bigger thing going on here. So we all acknowledge people buy people, yeah? Mm-hmm. And so picking up on what Tim said, which is absolutely right. So Tim, you were a new business salesperson. So your superpower was going in somewhere and being able to build trust and forge a relationship very quickly with people.
Yeah.
Yeah. let's imagine, if you will, that you go to buy, not you, Tim, but anyone, you go to buy a complex, high value strategic purchase, whether you do it from a business perspective or a personal perspective. Could be buying a car or a house. And you go in somewhere and there's somebody that you immediately like in that interaction, and you think, here's a person that is knowledgeable, that has listened to me, that I trust, that I like, that I would like to do business with. And you get your checkbook out and you write a check, and they take the check from your hand, and then they run off and you never see them again. Now, this is the fundamental problem that we have, that people buy people. Of all the people in the world, it's you that I want to do business with. You take my money and then you disappear. And actually, I think that there is a real issue here, because even though the person that has taken your money has won your trust, has shown you the light, has shown you that this is the way forward, this is what you need to do, you've put your trust in that person. And at that point, when they walk away and say, you're going to be dealing with Alex from now on, Alex is a really nice guy, but he's not the person that I just forged the relationship with. And surely the problem here is that you immediately percolate down to realizing that actually I'm merely a transaction. You pay lip service to it being a relationship-based sale, but it isn't. I'm a transaction. You got my money, and now you're going to process me as effectively as possible. And I think that this is a fundamental shortcoming of how most organizations sell these days.
Yeah.
I think it comes down to segmentation, though. So I'm not disagreeing, but I think we're simplifying a lot of quite complicated and merged issues. So if you're a strategic or global account director, that isn't a problem, because your life is making sure that you have a really tightly integrated team that doesn't do that, including delivery and professional services.
Yep.
If you're an enterprise rep, as an example, that again happens in a very, very limited sense of things. If you're not an enterprise rep, if you're a mid-market / SMB, yeah, that is the way that you'll work. And that is a very valid set of problems. And I think one of the things is no broad brush issues that we can say, problem, solution. And again, I do think it comes out of a completely different sector these days. And having been involved in the ISP and the ASPPS and whatnot, we got involved in the Trailblazers and the government and said, let's look at apprenticeships. And we created several apprenticeships with industry and academia for salespeople. Great, because now you can get a formal qualification. Not about that, but actually the one apprenticeship with a sales bent that kind of got out before we said to government, no, don't have an automotive sales apprenticeship. Don't have a healthcare sales apprenticeship, because what you're going to end up is 70 sales apprenticeships. And actually the common capabilities of selling should be transferable to different industries and different products. But the one that escaped, and it was the IT level 3. And actually I now support that, because I do believe that there's this completely different sector of software and SaaS and everything else now that's very different to the ways that other people sell because of the technologies. We just didn't have those. Yeah, Tim, I accept your point. The big vendors had software and had it for ages, but you still went out and saw people. These people sell it en masse from a desk to accountancies. Sage, perfect example. How much do they sell? Very few of their salespeople ever cross customers threshold.
Yeah, but there's a great comment there by a LinkedIn user, which is, we like to set a process because it allows us to measure and improve. It's harder to measure on the channel, but he agrees this is the way that customers buy now, which is what your point, Andy, which is I may go into a retail unit but then go to the web and buy it.
And is that level of, interestingly, we talk about trust in sales, but corporate trust in their sales function isn't where it needs to be. So if we don't trust our own sales functions, how the hell do we expect customers to trust them? And the reason I kind of say that is a great mate and I, we used to call it a dog in the yard syndrome. Yeah, if you think about building a Tetris house or whatever it is, and you look at that based on an MBA, look at all the things you're taught in an MBA as a business leader. You're taught marketing, you're taught finance, you're taught operations, you're taught all this stuff. Revenue apparently magically just happens. You're not taught about revenue functions. A whole bunch of people at Cranfield, and I'm really proud that Cranfield do actually electives for leading sales organisations. So full-time and part-time MBA students can come and learn it. It's the only university in the UK that does it. One of the few business schools in the world. Because most of them will end up in some sales function, sales operations function, some function that needs to understand it. But actually, back to the dog in the yard, there's no room that's actually allocated in the house for the salesperson. So you put them in the outside, yeah? And you're a little bit worried, though, I think, absolutely to LinkedIn's point, that they're not going to follow a process. So you put a fence around it. So you stop running off too far, yeah? And then you go, well, how am I going to motivate them? So actually what you do is you open a kitchen window or back door every so often and lob out a pork.
Lob out a piece of meat, yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, but if that's the way you think that this world operates and that's your function and you don't quite trust them, are we surprised that customers don't trust them? And to your point, or to the point I think we're trying to allude here is, have faith that the people in the retail function of that shop in that town are turning up regularly to do a great job. Now, as long as the region is getting its full potential and that team is getting its full potential and you're creating the team bonds so that the corporate guy drops in at the retail office and works from there a couple of days a week or whatever it is, isn't that the way forward? That we actually, before we start banging on about customers not trusting us, why don't we start banging on about organizations trusting their own sales functions? And exactly to that point, stop trying to measure everything and start trying to measure the right things.
Yeah,
absolutely. But I think that an issue, and this plays into what you said, I think an issue is that we live in a different world now to how we did when sales processes were originally considered and created. Everyone is hyper connected to everybody else. And often I think that organizations and teams and processes try to scale the wrong bits of the process. Digital, be that email or social or whatever, allows you to identify and keep a regular dialogue going with absolutely anybody that has an internet connection. And yet we often don't see that as being the upside. We see the scaling being, I'll send more emails, I'll send more outreach, I'll push you as the customer down this particular channel because you've already bought now. Whereas surely the beauty of this is that Tim forged a relationship with me. I immediately liked him and thought, okay, I trust you. Well, the value is the fact that there is trust there. And now that is the reason that's going to keep me buying. Even if Tim isn't selling this particular product, and maybe this is further to your point, Andy, about trusting people. If Tim is not responsible for selling this product, Tim is my entry point into the organization. Tim is the person that I like. Tim is the person that I trust. Tim is the person that I listen to. Therefore, keeping that dialogue going with Tim as my confidant, as my guide, surely that's the most valuable thing that any organization can have with a prospect or a customer.
There's a great comment by a LinkedIn user, which is always the question that gets asked, is who gets the commission?
Well, I think compensation is an entirely different conversation, isn't it? And your point, Andy, about customers going into one place and engaging with the product and then buying it through another channel. John Lewis is a great example of this. They've got the shops. Last few times I've been to any John Lewis, it's been pretty much empty of customers. Yet the website is roaring away. Part of the reason for that is the fact that people are going into the shops, looking at the products they want to buy, and then buying them with confidence because they've had somebody that said, "Yeah, here's the two options for beds. Try this one, which is pocket spring, and try this one that's a memory foam mattress. See which one you find more comfortable." Okay, and you can go online and you can buy it, and it'll be delivered to your home. And that idea of integrating those things, I think, is really important. And then you compensate people like John Lewis do. You compensate people based on the performance of the whole organization rather than just you. Because it's all very well saying, you've done really well, you've closed £1 million worth of business, but actually, if for whatever reason the product isn't in stock or the company aren't able to deliver that, then it's a bit of an irrelevance, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very retail model.
Mm-hmm.
And John Lewis, I know they do actually do some corporate, but they're very, very thin wedge on the corporate. I think when you've got more of a balanced view, and the vast majority of what you do is B2B, then the reality comes down to it's a bit harder to get that model to completely work. And a great comment here is, then who gets paid and who gets measured on doing what and why, and it requires a significant amount of trust. But what I do agree violently with you to is that we don't look at that back to the consumerism point. We don't go, if that's happening in our world, what's the implications for business? And what do we need to be thinking about 2-3 steps ahead? Because that's the way that we behave. So in my organisation, everyone knows who I worked for. We did have to look and go, and it's not going back. Everyone has to do is, what do you get when you buy from Amazon? You get a review, so you can go and actually see from people, is that product actually capable of doing what it said it's going to do? What are people's experiences of that product? Likewise, you could probably go to the actual end vendor's website and actually look at what market they've got. Everyone goes for Trustpilot these days, or Bazaarboy, or something like that. But then you get complete visibility. So it's okay, I've ordered my product. I know when it's going to arrive. I can track my package now because they've got a connection to all of their people who are shipping agents. So you can see where it all is. So there's a huge amount of open communication, transparency about the product, and then running at it and going, okay, I've got complete visibility of the supply chain. And we don't have that. I mean, 10 years ago, you never gave the customer regular updates when you actually, to Adam, to your point, you got the purchase order and it's like, yeah, great. And it's like, well, yeah, but when's my kit going to arrive? When's my product actually going to arrive? Well, I don't know. It's got nothing to do with me. I mean,
that's exactly
it. Put you on the delivery department.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know. So, well, here's an idea. Why don't you give me access to that information? Because I've just spent £1 million with you. Yeah, but that, that's another part of the process. No, it's not. It's exactly the same part of the process. And, great companies actually pull in the post-purchase order people to actually meet those customers and get the connections, Adam, to your point, that says, when you've given me my purchase order, actually, you've got a finance connection, you've got a logistics connection, you've got a professional services connection. We know when we're going to be delivering it. All the pieces will slot together, and we'll actually track and make sure that people are working in harmony to deliver a great post-purchase experience. But that comes down to, I'm not really worried about you delivering a post-purchase experience to your customer. I want you onto the next purchase order. I want you onto the next deal.
And I think your point, Andy, is that there is a big disconnect here, isn't there, between how you treat people and how you want to be treated. You know that your behavior is X, but yet for whatever reason, X doesn't suit how you deliver, or you believe that you're not subject to the same things that you imprint onto your expectation when you're dealing with a seller. And I think that a lot of this can be solved by people just standing back from the interaction and thinking, how would I want to be treated in this interaction?
I think it comes down to something that Tim said, which I'd love to explore with his 28-year-old, which is why did you leave sales? And it comes down to, and I'm going to be really bold here and go, I don't think we treat salespeople as adults. I think we treat them as quasi-kids, to be honest, because of the lack of trust, because of the way we want to measure them, because of the corporate expectation. And I'm expanding the theory we've talked about before. In my research and research of other people, all people learn best, regardless of what it is, through choice. And we don't give salespeople the choice on what they learn. We dictate to them what they learn, or the vast majority of companies do.
Yeah.
But isn't that, let's work it back. We dictate to them everything. We give them very little ambiguity or freedom within framework. And that's a number of reasons why. So maybe we could actually get Dale, get somebody on to actually start to measure CEOs, which is, why do you not give freedom in framework to your salespeople? What are the barriers to you completely trusting them?
Yeah.
Because that's where it starts, isn't it? And we had Ben, if everyone remembers, we had Ben Dorks on talking about organizational culture starts at the top, and he loves his salespeople.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So great point. I think we can maybe include an element or the element of trust in our challenge for this week. Because if you recall last week, we were talking about stress in sales, and the high levels of stress and poor mental health in sales. So we asked the community, we asked the audience a question, which we posted on the SalesTV group on LinkedIn. What role do you feel your manager plays in reducing your stress and encouraging your personal development? And we didn't have a great deal of votes, but percentage-wise, so the 4 options were none. We had 0%. The second option was more could be done. 25% of people voted for that. The third option was I have their full support. 25% answered that. And the fourth one, I'm looking for another job. 50% of people, respondents, answered with I'm looking for another job. So clearly they're not getting the support they need to overcome the stress and the effects that stress is having on their mental health.
And do we think that they've just they felt unsupported for a period of time, and they've just thought, actually, the easiest thing for me to do is just walk away and go somewhere fresh?
Yeah. I think to a lot of the things we've talked about today in terms of measuring the wrong things, putting pressure on people to deliver, and not considering their well-being, and there being a breakdown in trust.
But is that then back to exactly what we've just been talking about, which is there's no trust between employers and their managers and their corporations if you're in a sales role? And is it back to we've all got to double down on trusting?
Yeah. Why don't we pose that question this week? As a salesperson, do you feel like there's a high degree of trust within your sales organization, within your sales team? Yes, no, more can be done. Or yes, no, I'm looking for a new job.
If we have a look at that, because it would be interesting to then add to that the actual impact of task orientation. So are people being driven by tasks? Therefore, it takes them away from trust and it takes them away from customer orientation. So I've done some work with some people who are a beautiful company with great people, but they are so task driven that they don't have the time to pause and go, hey, Adam, before I just whack you over this form, just tell me a bit about yourself. What are you trying to achieve? That bit is not measurable and is not desirable because I want to tick, I've sent you the form.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, thank you for a great conversation. Thank you for fantastic comments from the audience.
Great comments. Thank you so much.
Absolutely brilliant. Really insightful and well thought through. And anyone in the audience who hasn't joined the SalesTV group should join the SalesTV group and keep the banter and the conversation going in there. Because I think we on SalesTV have all agreed that we're at a bit of a crossroads. There's going to be a massive change happening in sales over the coming months and years, and having our finger on the pulse and being part of the driver of that change, I think, is going to be important for all of us. So please do keep the conversation going, and until next week, or possibly even later today, if you would like to come to the North American show, we hope to see you again soon. Thank you very much indeed. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.